Game on, everybody, and welcome to another video. If there's anything that stayed consistent over the years of Yu-Gi-Oh, it's staples. What are staples? A staple is a card that is considered so splashable that it is included in almost any deck the owner chooses to construct. Opinions on what exactly constitute as a staple card often comes down to the individual, and also sometimes varies on the current meta status of the game. The purpose of this video is to educate both newer players as to what cards they should invest in as soon as possible, and to assist veteran players as a checklist to ensure they aren't caught missing these most useful cards. If you're interested in any of these cards that I mentioned in today's video, please consider using my TCG player affiliate link in the description box below and in the pinned comment. Please share this video with your friends, leave a like, subscribe for more helpful, useful, entertaining weekly videos, and leave me a comment as to what cards should have been included in this video. So when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm a huge nerd. So much that I make spreadsheets for this game. Like a lot. I mostly make spreadsheets for personal reasons. However, when making a sheet for a friend of mine, I thought it would be actually very valuable for many other players to reference, along with a very pretty screenshot of cards that will be referenced in today's video. Link to this sheet is available in my Discord and also in the description box below. At a glance, here are all the cards that we'll be talking about, their current lowest price per card, and quantity I recommend you pick up for your own collection. I also have here the grand total of the whole collection as of the date of the sheet was updated, and each column is color-coded according to the type of card and price point of the card. Hopefully this gives you insight as to what meets your personal needs, but in my opinion this is very boring, but kind of impressive if I do say so myself. So let's show you the physical cards and briefly go over each one when applicable. I am doing a giveaway, so if you guys are interested in winning this playmat here, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It truly helps me out. Alright, so here I have my staple binder. And wow, we have so much to kind of go over. Just gonna quickly make sure that this is all in shot. We can get both sides. Yeah, this is probably good enough. So starting off, we have our hand traps. We have, of course, the generic Ghost Ogre, Reaper. We don't necessarily play this anymore, this format, but it's good in the tier 0 format. And Ash Blossom, a must. You have to have this. Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion could come up as well. It just depends on the format. Really, most of these cards are very situational depending on the format. And then we also have Spooky Dogwood. Doesn't necessarily really ever come up. I think it was like maybe in one list once upon a time. And then the one I'm missing for the showcase, you'll see I have a little tag for each card that's missing, but it's essentially on my spreadsheet that we've already talked about. But we have Moonlit Chill. I'll go ahead and post a photo of it real quick. And part of Duel Devastator, we did get the Red Blossom from the Underroot. I don't know, I feel like it could have an application once upon a time, and any deck that can actually run Dimensional Shifter is a must. And how can we forget Droll and Lockbird, one of the original hand traps that kind of really messed up a lot of decks. Moving on, we then have DD Crow, a really good old card, an oldie but a goldie, some might say. Able to banish one of your opponent's cards from their graveyard, really messes up their combo lines. And if you're ever against a link heavy strategy, we also of course can play the Phantasme. Token Collector is a hand trap that comes up, also can be used in the graveyard. Basically whenever a strategy that focuses around token, no material definitely doesn't see as much play anymore. It had its brief moment during Master Rule 4, and then here it is now. It's just kind of good to have though. Electric Virus is useful against Dragon and Machine decks. It's not particularly useful, but I mean, it's definitely one of those things to have. Walk Kinetic Puppet. I honestly think this card's a real sleeper. Kind of one of those things where it's not like super good, but it definitely can mess up your opponent's line of plays if they have things very specific with link arrows. Of course, we also have Maxi. Who can forget Maxi? Who knows if this card's ever coming back at the time of this video. It is banned. It's been banned for a very long time. Who knows? The OCG has it at full power, and we have it at no copies. But a different C card that we have is Retaliating C. This card saw play when Shaddoll came back into the format actually. Basically, when an opponent activates a spell card that includes the effect of special summoning, you can special summon this card from your hand. This then banishes any cards that would go from the graveyard. Pretty disruptive. There's another new C card that's really popular in the format. I don't actually have any of those here within the binder, but I'll be sure to post it so then that way you guys can see it. I believe it's Contact C. That one's really good for messing up combo plays for certain decks. And then we have Ceravis. It's a ritual card, but it actually is also a hand trap. This essentially will protect your monsters from targeting effects. And how can we forget Infinite Impermanence? Infinite Impermanence is such a strong hand trap. It essentially power creeped Effect Veiler, but Effect Veiler still has its applications. We also have Nibiru, the Primal Being. Your opponent special summons more than 5 times, you drop the rock, it usually shuts them out. Skullmeister also sees play for anti-graveyard strategies. And one of the most powerful hand traps in the game, we also have Cyframe Gear Gamma. At the cost of playing a vanilla monster, Cyframe driver, as seen here, essentially allows you to negate a monster effect while you control no monsters, negate that effect, and can cause some really devastating combo plays. As previously mentioned, we have Effect Veiler, basically infinite impermanence, but in monster form. And a speed duel staple, we have Sphere Karibo. Not sure how relevant it is for Master Rule format, but you never know. Karibo is just kind of pretty nuts, but with Link monsters around, it's, not that favorable. And of course, we have one of the greatest equalizers in the game, Evenly Matched. End of battle phase, activate this card. If you control no cards, you can even activate this card from your hand, essentially forcing your opponent to board wipe themselves. Typhoon is technically a hand trap, but definitely doesn't see any play, but you never know, it could come up. And then Red Reboot, one of the very strongest anti-trap counter cards. Back row decks hate it. Alright, up next we have now our pot section and our honorary draw cards. So we have Pot of Extravagance and Pot of Prosperity would go here. I don't unfortunately own any, just waiting for it to drop personally. That's definitely where it would go. Essentially just banishing your extra deck to find the resources in your deck. Pot of Desires does something very similar by banishing cards in your main deck, allows you to draw 2 cards. And for very situational decks, we have Pot of Avarice and Pot of Duality. And as mentioned before, Upstart Goblin allows you to essentially play a 39 card deck, as this is just a filler card, gives your opponents 1,000 life points, you draw 1 card. In the game of Yu-Gi-Oh now, life points doesn't necessarily matter, unless I guess you maybe play a Mage. But what's important is that, do you have enough life points to pay costs? Do you have more than 0 life points? You're good. So some of the stun cards I have here, we have Spell Canceller, which is like a Jinzo. Speaking of Jinzo, we have Jinzo right over here. Spell Canceller basically negates spell cards, and Jinzo is there for trap cards. We have Vanity's Fiend, basically preventing special summoning for both players. I thought about including the other vanities below it, but that kind of gets the point across. And then we have the Barrier Statues. The most meta-relevant one currently is the Stormwind one. Make sure you guys at least have that one. In some situations, the Water one has actually come up, so I would definitely get those. Here would be the Fire one if I had it. I do not though. Ironic that I say a lot of players should have these cards, but we're working on it. Once you guys see the grand total of this whole collection, it'll make more sense as to why I don't have all these cards yet. Some more anti-strategy cards. We have Denko Sekka. This card is like almost a spell canceller in a Jinzo. And then we have Inspector Border. You play this against a new player, they have no idea what to do. And if for whatever reason we go into a counter deck format, such as spell counters, we have Gate Blocker. Onto our Kaiju monsters, we have Gamma Seal and Radian. These two are my 2 personal favorite. There is the Wind one, which I'll go ahead and post a photo of right now. That sees current play to counter the statue barriers. For sure, you have to get this one though. Gamma Seal is a must. And onto our Kaiju likes, we have Lava Golem and the Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere mode. What's stronger than just tributing 1 monster? Tributing 2 and tributing 3. Dino Wrestler Pankratops is a staple. So powerful that it's actually limited to 1. It's better than Cyber Dragon. Very similar to Dino Wrestler Pankratops, we have Magical Hound. So if this card's actually in your hand or graveyard, you can target 1 face of spell or trap your opponent controls, return it to the hand, and if you do, special summon this card. It's like a free extender. For our artifacts, we have artifacts Scythe, Sanctum, and Lancia. A very powerful combo, setting this to the field, then activating any of your artifacts from deck. Scythe allowing you to lock out your opponents from their extra deck. And Lancia, one of the best hand traps as well. Discarding this card from your hand, or send it from the field to the graveyard by tributing itself. This prevents any banishing effects. We also have Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, really strong for monster removal. And Chaos Hunter, allowing you to special summon this card, discard a card, and preventing your opponent from banishing. Eaters of Million is also a great card for monster removal. And then we have some old school staples. We have Regeki, Dark Hole, and Harpy's Feather Duster. Destroy all monsters your opponent controls, destroy all monsters on the field, and destroy all spells and traps your opponent controls. For our next section, we're going to go ahead and talk about our field spell cards. Terraforming, essentially an extra copy of any field spell. In similar fashion, we also have Metaverse. And to protect those cards, we also have even Field Barrier. If you do end up playing multiple types of field spells in your deck, you can play Set Rotation, the infamous Mystic Mine, and if you have a Spellcaster deck, you can play Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Some other notable cards I thought about adding, or I just couldn't find, I think was just Necro Valley. What other field spells can you guys think of? Leave me a comment down below. Onto our back row hate, we have Cosmic Cyclone. This is my personal favorite. At the cost of 1,000 life points, you can banish 1 spell or trap from the field. Mystical Space Typhoon, it kind of comes up, but what's stronger than Mystical Space Typhoon in some situations is Twin Twister. So we have a banish, remove 1, remove 2 at the cost of discarding 1. Blizzard is very applicable to some situations. It could come up. Night Beam is actually currently seeing play on those cards that you don't want your opponent to activate immediately in response of trying to destroy them. And Galaxy Cyclone can actually be very useful essentially allowing you to destroy 2 cards, one being face down and one being face up, depending on where it's at on the field. Lightning Storm is basically Harpy's Feather Duster and Regeki in 1 card. The only caveat is that you have to control no face-up cards on your side of the field. Heavy Storm Duster is a great alternative to the cards listed above, and Unending Nightmare could come in clutch when all these other cards are Imperial ordered. What do I have actually next? We have Anti-Magical Arrow. This card essentially prevents other spells and traps from being activated. Allure of Darkness is such a great card, especially since dark monsters are very prevalent in the game. And if you're feeling extra greedy, you could even try Performapal Popper-Up. This card has been theorized to essentially draw a whole bunch of cards at the cost of your life points. And Called by the Grave is such an amazing staple card for combo decks. We have another classic, Monster Reborn, essentially allowing you to target 1 monster in the graveyard and special summoning it. In very similar fashion, we actually have World Legacy Succession. The only caveat is you have to control a Link monster with an unoccupied arrow. Some more powerful one-offs is 1 for 1, allowing you to special summon level 1 monsters at the cost of sending 1 monster from your hand to the graveyard, and Reinforcement of the Army, a very powerful card just to search out a level 4 warrior monster from your deck and add it to your hand. Herald of the Abyss could be very situational. This could really force out some important combo pieces for your opponent's deck. Another powerful one-off, we have Reasoning. This can not only fuel your graveyard, but also special summon a monster to the field. Forbidden Chalice can see play. There is a card that's stronger than it, but for the budget-friendly version, Forbidden Chalice is still a really good card. We also have Book of Moon, really good at turning off monster floodgate effects, and even some cases double summon is very strong. It just needs a specific deck to utilize its potential. Machine Duplication has its uses in mostly Cyber Dragon, or at least that's what it's most known for, but it just lets you spam the board, provided you meet its activation requirements. Enemy Controller is actually one of my favorite cards. Seto Kaiba played it in the anime, and it's just so iconic. I think it's actually even a Duel Links staple, but it has some application in the Master Rule format. Mind Control is a very powerful one-off, and in very similar fashion, we have Crackdown, essentially a slower mind control, but can be better in some ways. And if you really know your opponent's deck, you can use Prohibition against them, essentially locking them out from key points of a strategy. So right up next, we have the Compulse section. I call it the Compulse section because Compulsory Evacuation Device and these cards actually over here are very similar in some ways. This will allow you to bounce a monster from the field to the hand. Lost Wind has a very similar application, and it even recurs itself. In a weird way, a power crept but not so power crept version of that card is Cider, and a card that's extremely similar to Compulse's Get Out. This one allows you to target 2 monsters instead of the 1, but because it requires 2 targets and not up to 2 targets, it's very situational. And kind of in a similar fashion, we also have Jelly Cannon. We have Shared Ride. This is like if you had Maxi, but Maxi at home. If your opponent keeps drawing, you're gonna keep drawing with them. Then we have Gold Sarcophagus, a card that's limited to 1, very powerful, an iconic Yugi card. And another card that's a great equalizer is Dark Ruler No More. We have Psy Blocker, which I'll go ahead and show to you guys. Now this card is very situational. So situational, I actually haven't picked it up myself, but it's always been on my radar to pick up. If we ever have a format that's ritual monster heavy, we have Mask of Restrict. And to prevent those spam summoning boards, we have Summon Limit. If for whatever reason a format is too heavy of extra deck mechanic, like of a pure extra deck mechanic, we have Dimensional Barrier to completely lock out your opponent from that summoning mechanic. We have Gozen and Rivalry of the Warlords. Gozen Match locks both players into 1 attribute, and Rivalry locks both players into 1 type of monster. Very powerful for pure decks. It's just very situational. And some decks can even play There Can Be Only One. It just varies on the deck. Anti-Spell Fragrance is a great card to counter pendulum strategies. Royal Decree is great against trap decks. And we have Imperial Order, a very powerful card preventing spell cards. We have some more trap cards on the next page. Different Dimension Grounds. I'm actually surprised this card doesn't come up more often. Essentially, when a card gets sent to the graveyard, it's now banished instead. I feel like Forbidden Apothecra could come up if we have a very tier 0 format. There's better options in my opinion, but I just feel like it's one of those cards that could see play. And then System Down is essentially a card that prevents machine types. So if we ever get into a format where machine decks are running rampant, you can definitely play this card. We have Mind Drain. At the cost of 1,000 life points, neither player can activate effects of monsters in the hand. So essentially that's anti-hand trap. And Dark Bribe, there are some cards that are better than Dark Bribe, but it's great to counter back row strategies on a budget. We also have Witch's Strike. If you end up playing against a deck that's really reliant on Solemns, you can really punish your opponent, provided they don't actually have a follow-up or response to Witch's Strike. Speaking of Solemn, we have Solemn Strike, Judgment, and Warning. These cards literally just tell your opponent no. Similar to Dark Bribe, we also have Wiretap. That one is unfortunately more situational to just trap cards. Grand Horn of Heaven could potentially see play. It's a really old card. There's probably better options, but it doesn't hurt to have this in your arsenal. If you play a water attribute strategy, you should definitely play White Howling, or at least consider it in your deck. This card used to be really good, as it would provide you information from your opponent's hand, but it no longer works that way. But it can really force out some cards out of your opponent's hands once you realize what they're playing and force some cards out. Trickstar Reincarnation works in the similar way of just essentially banishing your opponent's entire hand, forcing them to mulligan, but you could have ended up banishing a lot of key starter cards from their hand. Pairing this with Droll and Lockbird is very devastating. Peaceful Burial, I feel like maybe one day we'll have a format or a situation where this card comes up, and in similar fashion, Storm Dragon's Return could help you special summon a banished monster to your side of the field, but return it to your hand in the end phase. I just feel like one day this card will be extra useful. A card that's actually super useful right now is Trap Trick. If you run multiple copies of normal trap cards in your deck, you can activate Trap Trick, banish one copy of your card, and immediately set another copy of a card, which you can activate in the same turn. And what if I told you, and just imagine this, if you're playing a trap deck already, and there was a card that was released that says when your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand, you can add any card from your deck to your hand, but you can't activate it this turn. That is literally sales pitch. It is so good. I would highly recommend you play this card if you play a trap strategy deck. Onto our last bit of trap cards, I believe. Yeah, so we have Reckless Greed. Essentially draws 2 cards now, but skip your draw phase. Appointer of the Red Lotus was an old card that actually got reprinted. It gives you so much knowledge, allowing you to ideally coordinate your negates on your opponent's turn. Back to the Front is like a monster reborn, but not really. Ordeal of the Traveler is kind of a funny card. Doesn't necessarily see play at all today. But what does see play is Paleozoic Deinonymiscus and Paleozoic Canadia. If you don't have any of the Paleozoic cards, you definitely need at least both of these. I strongly believe you guys should get the Topologic monsters. This one's better than Harpy's Feather Duster in a way because it banishes the cards. This one's an onboard presence Regeki. And this one just banishes everything off the field. So this page is my Verte Anaconda page. I know I have a Rainbow Neo somewhere, and Ready Fusion I was waiting for the card price to drop, but this card lets you cheese out any of the polymerization or fusion cards. This card is just for Rainbow Neos. This card is just for Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Polymerization, you need this card. Super Polymerization, you super need that card. Instant Fusion, another great card. And Ready Fusion is basically the retrain of Instant Fusion, but not really. Following this page, we have some more extra deck good stuff. We have Crystron Halki Fyrax, great synchro support. Heavy Metal Flows Electromite, great for pendulum strategies. And Bujinki Ahashima, that card's honestly great for XZs. So this little row we have Fusion Deployment, Sandwich, and Sangan. This card basically says activate this card, search a card of that type. So this card says it requires Sangan and Witch of the Black Forest. So activating this card gets you the Sangan and Witch of the Black Forest. More powerful Link monsters, we have the Boral Load and Boral Sword Dragon. I have both arts, I just have the original art in my deck currently. Great for taking monsters and great for closing games. To back up our Cyframe package, we have Cyframe Lord Lambda, always making sure your hand trap is live. We have the Double or Nothing package. We make Utopia double, search the spell card, and then overlay into Utopia. It helps us close out games. Really powerful. Speaking of powerful, we have the Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon and Chimera Tech Mega Fleet Dragon. Very great for anti-link strategies. We also have Selene, a really great pendulum support card. Nightmare Griffin, a really strong card that helps support link strategies. Relinquish Anima is a great card. We can use this to punish our opponent's card placements. And Link Karibo, one of the best link monsters in the game. For our next section, we have Waking the Dragon targets. So Waking the Dragon is a great card, especially if you play a back row heavy deck. If your opponent knows to play back row hate, they'll be citing a whole bunch of cards that basically destroy this card. When this card's destroyed, you can special summon any card from your deck or extra deck to the field. And these are hands down the best targets. So these 6 up here are essentially our super poly targets. And then for our instant fusion targets, I kind of just put them here because the other page was occupied. But instant fusion target for Thousand Eye Restrict and Millenniumize Restrict. Great for taking your opponent's monster, and also really great as a pseudo Called by the Grave. All right, let's see what we have on the next page. IP Masquerena, a great card, especially powerful with Nightmare Unicorn. We'll get to that later. We have also Link Spider, a really great card to help facilitate normal deck strategies, and also plus off of tokens. We'll talk about tokens later. We also have Artifact Dagda, another great card that helps us with our artifact engine. Elder Entity Intis, This card is one of those targets that you send from the extra deck to the graveyard, and then it essentially allows you to pop cards on the field. We have Scapegoat and our tokens. Players definitely need tokens, and Scapegoat is just one of those cards that comes in and out of the format just to kind of spam the board. One of my favorite engines is the scrap package. I won't go too far into details, but this lets you graveyard dump so much, especially if you're a machine strategy focused deck. Dark Requiem Xyz Dragon has its moments in the format, but what's even better in the format is Abyss Dweller. If you're ever against an opponent who banishes a bunch of cards, you need to play this card. Another great card is Hope Harbinger. This card allows you to negate a spell card, add it to your side of the field, and then activate it on your next turn. Light Dragon Adagnister I think has a lot of potential. Definitely consider this card. It essentially acts as a rank 4 Dingirsu to help protect your board. And we also have Gallant Granite. Imagine being able to add a Nibiru from your deck to your hand, or if you play a rock strategy deck, search any of your combo pieces. We also have Trap Eater. This card definitely doesn't really come up as often. You never know when you go against a heavy back row deck. There are some better cards, but it's an option. So I think my next page is Synchro Monsters. Yeah, so we have Virtual World Beast Yugioh. This is great for monster removal. We also have Martial Metal Marcher. This card sometimes sees play. It just kind of varies on the format and the combo lines. Herald of the Arclight is a great card for ritual decks. It also helps you with a negation, and any card that's sent from the deck to the graveyard is actually banished. TG Hyper Librarian sometimes comes up just to draw some extra cards from your deck, and Black Rose Dragon is a great equalizer card. Cyframe Lord Omega comes up whenever you end up being able to use Cyframe Gamma, able to make this on your turn, and it also has some really great recycle abilities. If you guys don't have these cards, I recommend you get Nightmare Phoenix, Unicorn, and Cerberus as soon as possible, provided they are affordable, and they should be. They've been reprinted many times. These cards are great for back row removal, monster removal, and spinning one card from the field back to the deck. Up here we have my Charmer collection. We have the Fire, Wind, Earth, Water, Light, and soon to be Dark, I imagine. You guys should just pick these up. They could be format situational. And then our powerful boss monsters, we have Apollousa, Bow of the Goddess. This card can essentially get you up to 4 different negates. We also have Access Code Talker. This card is excellent for closing out games. And we also have Mech Knight Crusader Avermax. This card is very difficult for some decks to out. And if your opponent manages to get rid of it, you're able to bounce one card from the field back into the deck. All right, moving on, we also have some more good generic monsters. So you just Goldred, really good for that deep drawing. Cross Sheep has its moments. Its first 2 effects are great, especially if you play Ritual or Fusion decks. Sea Monster Theseus, the strongest fusion monster in the game, can be paired up with Ready Fusion. Borreload Savage Dragon, a very powerful card, providing you with negates. F.A. Dawn Dragster, very similar in the same way, providing you with negates. Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, another great card to give you negates. Totally Awesome is actually totally awesome. This allows you to essentially just take your opponent's cards and then use it against them. Tornado Dragon is also really great for destroying back row cards. And how can we forget Gaga Cowboy? He's there for the burn damage. You guys know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, I highly recommend you look it up. We also have Castell. Depending on the situation, it could really come up, helping you get over and get rid of problematic monster cards. We also have Baguska. This really slows down the whole game, allowing you to gain enough momentum to play when you're ready. We also have Evil Swarm Excaton Knight, a great equalizer card, and one of my personal favorites, Dingirsu, the Orchest of the Evening Star, a generic rank 8 monster, essentially allowing you to send a monster on the field to the graveyard. It can also be useful to protect all cards on your side of the field. And I don't quite have this card yet, but I'm working on it. AA Zeus. If you play an XZ style deck, you have to get this card. From this point forward, I kind of get mixed up of what my organization was originally. I have Torrential Tribute. This card comes in and out of the format, but it is a great board wipe. Imperial Iron Wall basically prevents cards from being banished at all. Skill Drain basically makes everything just to a vanilla beatdown fest. And Macrocosmos is used for its second effect, where any card that is sent to the graveyard is banished instead. On to the very last part of the page, but don't go anywhere yet. We still have more to talk about. We have the honorable mention. Shout out to George, Santa Claus. I'll show a photo right now. It's like a kaiju. Most people play this around Christmas time. It's really funny. And the draw effect is optional. So if your opponent forgets it, that's on them. I put kaijus there because there are other kaijus that are playable. Cycle Reader is also great for those anti-light strategy decks. We also have Triple Tactic Talent. This card is 3 forbidden cards in 1. It is far too expensive for me to own. Speaking of far too expensive for me to own, Forbidden Droplet, it's like Forbidden Chalice, but better. It's like Dark Ruler No More, but better. And then I actually do have Ice Dragon Prison somewhere. I think I put it in one of my decks that I'm playing with right now. Probably my Lair of Darkness deck or something. If you guys are interested in any of these cards that I mentioned in today's video, please consider using my TCG player affiliate link in the description box below. I would greatly appreciate it. Also be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and share with your friends if you thought this was useful. Don't forget to check out my spreadsheet and my Discord. And if you guys would like to see me stream on Twitch and get some access to awesome emotes, I would greatly appreciate it if you guys stopped by. So there you guys have it. So the grand total of a binder that costs somewhere similar to this, with the exception of the money cards, if we're talking about everything included, they're looking about at this price at the time of this video. Stay connected. I really appreciate you guys. And if you guys are interested in the giveaway, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I do try to post weekly videos, and if I'm late on that, I'm just working on an extra high quality video like this one. I really hope this video was extra helpful to others. If you guys are interested in my other spreadsheets too, just leave a comment down below. I'm not afraid to show my nerdy side. I mean, I play Yu-Gi-Oh, you know? Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. I'm out of here.